inflow of job seekers into the job market. We'll definitely have further analysis on the show. Also on the breakfast, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) says electronic collation of election results not mandatory, citing paragraph 50 to 55 of the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of the 2023 presidential election. And don't forget, we'll also be looking through today's newspapers, analyzing the biggest stories of the day. Good morning and welcome to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. We're reaching you live from our studios right here in Victoria Island, Lagos. I am Messi Ebokpo. Usually our conversation starts off with what Nigerians are talking about, what are the stories, what's of interest, to a lot of people. Now, this is quite unfortunate. I'd like that we run the track of this particular unfortunate incident that happened, between the 3 o'clock hours of yesterday or about evening of unfortunate a reputation of what had happened. Okay, unapproved according to the reporters. I'm sure that we can roll that particular tape if we do have it. The report is saying that this building was unapproved, 7-floor building under construction, collapsed in Banana Island, just right here in Lagos in the evening. Now, few actually sustained injury, and that's according to the report, and that they are being treated. The government also said that, no one actually lost their life, no one's dead, but this is an unfortunate incident that happened while casting was being done. Now, if you look at that, it really reminds me of 9/11, real-time capturing. You could see people up there, and you could see how the building was going down. A lot of people have questioned it, but the Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, put out a statement immediately. He was at the site, however, to assess the situation and flag off investigation. The agency had activated its response plan upon arrival at the scene of the incident and discovered that 7-story building under construction had collapsed, and inspection further revealed that the building was damaged by a cement mixed truck which drove into the building, columns. That's the report that we're getting. Now, a head count was also carried out by the CSO, who said that, who was at the site and said that it was just an adult male that couldn't be accounted for, and his whereabouts, you can't tell. But if you run back that particular tape, if you look at it, you see, I really don't know, but it's quite scary. Now, this is a reputation of what has happened before now. We've had a collapse, structure, and it's not first time buildings will collapse in Lagos. And another one that happened, in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, it was really, really saddening. And then just when we thought that, we had overcome all of this, we're not going to witness this again, then this happens, yesterday. It's unfortunate. But let us cast our minds back to, a lot of things. If you remember vividly, if you live in Lagos or you don't live in Lagos, then it might interest you to know that because of the high number of cases of building collapse in Lagos State, the Lagos State government had passed into law the Urban and Regional Planning Development Law in 2010. That's a long time, 2010. That's the planning law. The law established 3 physical planning and development agencies under the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development. You have the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority, which is saddled with the responsibility of processing and issuing planning permits in the state. So you ask yourself, who, issued the order? This is not possible for you to have this building erected without someone being involved. Someone, approved that. Now, the Lagos Building Control Agency is another one that is vested with the responsibility of monitoring and enforcing building control regulations. So it's another thing to have a law. You also have a body whose duty is to ensure that regulations are respected to the latter. Okay, monitoring and enforcing building control regulation. The Lagos State Renewal, Urban Renewal Agency is also another one. The responsibility of this is that it implements the state policy on urban renewal and upgrade of slums in Lagos. So there are procedures. I mean, it is not rocket science, because if you behave in a certain way, you can actually predict what the outcome will be. And it's just so embarrassing and very saddening, and it's really, really scary that every other time we constantly have these occurrences. And what exactly is the actions that we take? Because this building would actually, there are procedures, there are standards, there's everything. You have to go through the entire procedure. There would have been a compromise. It's not possible that this actually happened for whatever excuses that we're giving now and whatever it is that we're saying. Someone has compromised at a certain level, not to even think about 2010. So if you look at 2010, since the law was actually, there was a law in place to ensure, and the creation of all of this ministry with different bodies and agencies, 3 of them. How far have we fared in Lagos State with building collapse? Do we still have, these as an occurrence? Yes, of course. And like we said that time in 2021, several buildings had collapsed, and then we're still going to say in 2023 there will be more buildings that will collapse if we don't do the needful. Now, this is entirely not on the government, but all hands must be on deck. Contractors, whatever it is, the owner of the structure. It is just something that is wrong, and it's not possible. Look at that. We can't continue like this and expect a different result, really. It is very embarrassing, and it's saddening to say. Now, however, following that particular report, it's a good thing to say that there's no casualty in terms of, someone losing their life. However, we're praying that those who have sustained injury, would actually recover quickly. And there should be a proper investigation to ascertain proper head count of those who are actually available. If you see that, people have asked question, how did this video come real time? Was it that people had anticipated? You could see people trying to run, because there's no how a building is going to try to collapse without seeing the signs. So, and look at all the structures around. You ask yourself, what is wrong? What exactly is wrong with following the process if there are laws? So yes, it's a failure on government, it's a failure on people, it's a failure entirely on the entire system. And like I said again, if we don't do the needful, if we don't do the right thing, we will continue to witness buildings collapsing, not just in Lagos, but in the entire country. So yes, this is a wake-up call. Hope we can get it right and just reduce all of these incidents. It's totally unfair. Now, the next conversation is also not very exciting, because just yesterday, we talked about police brutality. I think that has also dominated the conversation for the past weeks, and it feels like it's something that's not going to leave our space recently. It's the fact that a police officer was seen assaulting youth over money in Delta State. So this report, according to the report and investigation that we had, a bribe-seeking police officer who was filmed assaulting. He was, the video, if we have that particular track, we can actually run it, where he threatened to kill the young men over 100 naira in Delta State. Now, according to the victims, they say that the policeman had accosted them, searched their vehicles and demanded for 100 naira. And the youth refused, to pay that money. And the officer unleashed, terror. Now, in that viral clip, the police officer can be seen, wielding a knife, his baton, a gun, while saying, "You dey craze." That's in pidgin English. "You dey craze? Are you mad? I will kill you here." To terrify the youth who actually abandoned their car and ran into the bush. This is actually an amateur video. You can see what's going on right there. And I'm almost, tearing at this point in time. And this happened in Delta State, the state capital. But just quickly look at that. I'm not sure we have the audio for that. You could see this. It brings a lot of tears, to my eyes. But I'll try not to let it drop this morning. Okay, So that's exactly the kind of climate that we live in. That's the kind of society that we live in. That those who are being paid with taxpayers' money are treating, Nigerians as animals and are treating them like they don't even matter. In the course of discharging your duty, I'm sure that we can do, better as a people. This is really, really heartbreaking. And honestly, I really don't understand where we're headed as a people. Now, it might also interest you to know that just recently, we talked about the killing that happened of a middle-aged businessman by police officers after the deceased reportedly refused to offer him 100 naira as bribe at the checkpoint. The death of this young man led to a serious protest in the capital. Residents actually condemned, that particular act. And then again, we're talking about this. Exactly are we at this? Where is the IGP in all of this? What is the president saying? What are the people saying? What are these governors who actually also resisted the policy of the Naira redesign? What exactly are we saying with all of this inhumanity that's going on? All those sort of crude behavior that we have in the police system? I mean, just really look at that. It is so shameful, but that's what happens when you have laws and their lack of implementation. People are not paying for the crime. People, because there's a lot of impunity, when people are not punished for what they have done, then it continues to enthrone such behavior. And these police officers think that they can act this way and get away with it. But again, there's no how we're going to say we have laws, because we do have laws. The problem is not that we don't have laws. We have laws that caters to all of these issues. But exactly, you ask the question, what exactly is the problem? The problem is in the fact that we do not implement the laws. And this is fanning the wings of this man. And, just a reminder, to police officers, that your slogan says that police is your friend. But are you really the friend of the people? Is a question you need to ask yourself. In the course of discharging your duty, is it anywhere that is written in, your mode of operandi, the guidelines, the letter of offer, whatever it is, the entire training that you have to carry out your duty in this manner? This is totally, not acceptable. And I'm hoping that the relevant quarters would rise up and these men involved in this sort of behavior, barbaric behavior, will be apprehended and made to face the law. Now, don't forget that for whatever it is, whether it's a criminal, everyone is innocent until being proven guilty. So what exactly could be responsible for this behavior? Let's move away from it, but I won't be surprised that, probably we'll come back tomorrow and we're talking about another sort of inhuman treatment by police officers, those who should be maintaining the law and order, those who should be friends of the people, but in turn have made themselves enemy of the people. Now, and also another one, which is also not interesting. I mean, usually it feels like you probably not have very exciting story every other time to talk about, is the fact that the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, has been said to do a report saying that he was held at the Heathrow Airport in the United Kingdom after being approached by immigration officials. So this is actually not something that happened happened yesterday and then they're reporting. Now, according to a statement that was released by the Obi Dati Media Office, that was yesterday, Obi was purportedly taken aside for copying crime, like an impersonation. Now, according to the Labour Party Media Office, they suggested that he had an impostor in the nation. So someone apparently is impersonating Peter Obi. Obi Dati Media Office confirmed that the Labour Party presidential candidate, who had arrived at the airport in London from Nigeria, joined the queue for just necessary airport protocols when he was accosted by immigration official who handed him a detention note and told him to step aside. So this was actually reported on Wednesday, but doesn't mean that it happened, Wednesday, by Professor Chinyere, who's also a known mass communication expert and deputy vice chancellor of a popular university, Paul University in Oka. Now, reports say that Peter Obi had lived in the UK and he described it. It was said that he described it as his professor, his ordeal, who had served alongside him as a commissioner for information for economic and planning and coordinating commissioner or commission for the development partners in the private sector at the time where he was also governor. He said that Peter Obi expressed his pain over the ordeal and incident that were intended to, just I think it's quite embarrassing if you say, but there are too many questions that are, that are seeking for a lot of answers, begging for answers. Now, according to Professor Chinyere, it was in the face of some sort of protest by Nigerians where the immigration officer revealed that someone was impersonating him, because apparently if he showed up, people would have seen him. And when they noticed that, the questioning was taking a long time, people became very concerned. It was strange for the fact that he didn't come out immediately. And I think that, arose the interest of a lot of Nigerians that were there at the time. And of course, that led to them saying what happened. It was just for the quick intervention of Nigerians who were available. We don't probably know what would have been the issue. But like I said, there are too many things that you want to begin to question and probe. So if you say someone is impersonating, how is that possible? Because it's not possible for you to impersonate me without my biometrics. And I mean, there's a lot of things. Is the person impersonating the name? Is the person using the picture as well? Because if you go, somebody has to look at your passport and look at the face. Is it the same person? Are you using the name? Too many issues. How can that happen, without a collaborative effort? What exactly is going on? At what point was this bridge? Too many questions between the Nigerian society and including the United Kingdom. Several questions that are begging for answers. But fingers crossed, we see how all of that pans out. It can't be unfortunate. You can only imagine what would happen, in other parts of the country. Because if someone impersonates you, it's easy for them, someone that has imposted you or impersonated you, and the problem might just be in that country, committing crime in your name and with your face. So we can't for sure say if this person cloned the passport with his face, with all of his details. That's a lot to grapple. That's a lot to wrap our heads around. But we will definitely seek answers to all of this and follow and bring you more updates and development as to this particular story. That's the size of it. We'll just take a quick break. When we return, we'll just like to run through the front pages of our national dailies. We call it Off the Press. Please stay with us.
Question is, independent from what? Because in my opinion, independence is about being independent of the colonialism that we were forced into. But it's not about being independent of British rule. Because to rule a people, you set certain infrastructure in place to control them. If you're going to be independent of their rule, you must be independent of their infrastructure that allowed them control you. Now, guess what? The British left. They didn't live with their infrastructure, they left it. It's now left to us to take the infrastructure, dismantle it, and like the second stanza says, build a nation. We didn't build Nigeria. The British built Nigeria, built the infrastructure, ran into crisis because of the financial strain of the Second World War, started to let go of all the colonies. That's why in Africa, a lot of independence happened between 59 and 66. Not a coincidence. It was a financial strain on them. So they pretended to let go. But they left their infrastructure. Now, guess what? Our politicians then came in. Instead of them dismantling the infrastructure and building a nation that we deserve, that aligns with our natural culture and religion, they built on the same infrastructure that allowed the British to control us. And so we are not independent of that infrastructure. The infrastructure is now used by the politicians. The politicians are now the equivalent of colonial masters. We serve them. And so they know this. And that is why we do not have any freedom whatsoever. I can't even use Twitter because somebody doesn't like it. So if we want, we're not independent.
So you're saying we're still in slavery?
We are still in slavery to a different set of masters. We're in slavery to, it was politicians in the first place, then it became the military in the next place. Now it's a combination of military people that call themselves politicians. I don't have freedoms. There are many things I can't do. We're not going negative, you know what I mean? But we need to understand that independence is about being independent of an imposed infrastructure. If the infrastructure was imposed to control you, if the puppeteer changes, you are still being controlled.
He said, the problem is rule of law, not corruption. He said, Obama was the president in America then. He said, if Obama should slap his driver today, the whole of America knows the number of years he's going to spend in jail. Even from the media. The following morning, it will be, headline news. Obama risked 5 years in jail.
Yes.
Everybody knows.
Yes.
So it becomes so difficult for even the judge to do much about it. He said, but once that system, once the system is right, everything thrives.
Yeah.
So it's not so much for what we practice, but how we practice it.
We always refer to countries like Singapore, refer to countries like even the United States, and we always want to become like them. But realize that the foundation is that we have to be conscious of the fact that we are putting in the right people in power. That way we can then demand for good governance. And also there's a thing of where most times we tend not to even demand for good governance. We assume that we will get it, but it doesn't happen. Sometimes you just have to demand for good governance, and it's our rights as citizens of a country to demand for good governance.
How can I grab people's attention on social media for my videos?
Two things. One, ask a question, then start with the word you. You want to make sure the word you is in the first question, your first phrase. So are you a stay-at-home mom? Or do you struggle with acne? Or if you are like Kafaya that just had a baby and wants to get back to work, there are a few things you can do. So you want to make sure it's ask a question, has you, and addresses the pain points of your target market immediately. So it pretty much just calls them out like, hey, and they pay attention to it.
I've also had friends that I met literally 2 weeks ago, and we text every day.
You can really call a friend that you met 2 weeks ago.
Well, I mean, yes,
a friend?
it depends. It depends on how the connection, how deep it is. Because you meet someone, it's like when you go to a party, for example, there are people you say hi to, and there are people that you say hi to and they come and sit with you, and you guys talk. Those people are, well, you can't, maybe friends, maybe people you know, people that, you know. So it depends. You could be friends with someone on a certain degree and be friends with someone on another degree. It's very important that you're friends with people that are kind.
Okay.
I, for one, I like kind people. I don't like, for example, if you meet someone and you notice that the only way they compliment you is like a backhanded compliment.
Okay.
Or you say something to them and they always want to pick out the negatives first before they, I can't be friends with that. I can't be friends with that kind of person. You know, so I look out for that. I also look out for how you treat everybody else, you know, aside from how you treat me, because people will treat you different because they perceive you a certain way, you know. So kindness and how you treat people, and you know how good you are with communication, because communication is very important. It's a very big problem in our society today. A lot of people don't know how to communicate, or don't know. Some people tend to like tag normal communication as over communication.
Yeah.
And you know the average Nigerian is paranoid, so they'll be like, "Why are you explaining to me? Why are you talking too much? Why are you explaining too much?"
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, communication, respect, and you know, just being kind. The person as a person.
Commitment.
You know, commitment, and understanding that it's an intentional act. You don't just act however and expect the person to get over it because you're friends. It's how you see a lot of people say, he knows how I am now, da 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 da. It's like, yeah, it's how you are, but what are you doing to change it?
True.
Because this how you are is not comfortable.
Okay.
You get, for me, or it's not the best or in our best interest.
True.
It might be harmful, it might be unhealthy. But because that's how you are doesn't mean that
That's
you
the right
continue
way
to
to
be like
be.
that. It's not the right way to be.
Okay.
So a lot of people, tend to not see that as anything, but then that's a very important and delicate part of friendship, because once you do that over and over again, there's only so much someone can take.
Beliefs on what friendship is or what bonding is. There's almost like a need to disrespect somebody when you're close to the person. So I'll give an instance. A friend comes over to your house and they're not supposed to be boundaries. Instead of asking, oh, can I use this? The person would say, we're friends now. We're beyond this. We're sisters. You're my collarbone, and all those words they used to describe their type of intimacy. Until there's a fraction in that relationship, and then you remember that person is not really your brother or your sister as they claim. So I think that human beings really thrive on self-esteem, respect, dignity. Those are the things that make us feel on top of the world, regardless of how much is in our bank account. You want to feel seen, you want to feel loved.
Intentions. I'm not going to say I want to be your friend now when I have something in my mind that, okay, let me just go through friendship, then, don't do that. If I like someone and I want to be the person's friend, it's not, as in nothing is going to go beyond that friendship. Like, I always my mind is always made up on some things like, I like this person is my friend, and there's nothing. And one thing is, you should be able to stand out for your friends. If for your friends, you'll be able to stand out for them, stand for them. And what makes that friendship solid is how you understand them and how you communicate to them. Your communication is really important.
How can I grab people's attention on social media for my videos?
Two things. One, ask a question, then start with the word you. You want to make sure the word you is in the first question, your first phrase. So are you a stay-at-home mom? Or do you struggle with acne? Or if you are like Kafaya that just had a baby and wants to get back to work, there are a few things you can do. So you want to make sure it's ask a question, has you, and addresses the pain points of your target market immediately. So it pretty much just calls them out like, hey, and they pay attention to it.
You may want to ask why murals are important. It is no secret that murals make neighborhoods beautiful. They add color to building walls and streets which would otherwise go unnoticed. They are a treat for locals and tourists alike. Murals have been part of Nigeria's cultural landscape for thousands of years. The term mural became popular with the Mexican muralism art movement. The transformation which took place in the history of mural art during the 1920s and 1930s was highly influenced by the government's sponsorship in Mexico. The Mexican president Alvaro Obregón began a nationalist cultural program in the 1920s. As part of this program, the Mexican Ministry of Education and other government entities to create public murals. In Lagos, the visual effects of wall paintings are an excitement to attract public attention to social issues like the ones here under the Falomo Bridge. An artist Poli Alakija, created these murals on the columns in homage to the Bring Back Our Girls, the 276 schoolgirls who were abducted on April 14, 2014 by Boko Haram. We speak to an artist, Ebenezer Omole, a 34-year-old who started off as a child and has been painting for many years. This is one of the locations where he has some of his works. He explains the processes involved.
There's a way I blow this color. When you look close to it, you see as if it's flowing down, So I have to follow the flowing down, then blow it both left and right. So in order to make it creative, so that it won't just go down straight, but go left, right, and zigzag like that. I mix another black thicker than this, then to write what they have here. Especially like this is, we have food here, then we have swimming pool here, then we have games, then we have drinks here, then we have pools, music. So I just did an artwork that will speak for this place because this is a restaurant. So I did those backgrounds so to speak. So anybody coming inside, looking at this place alone, so they will know what is going on around there.
He speaks on the distinguished effects imbibed in artistic painting than ordinary ones on the wall.
Ordinary painting is just maybe changing the wall to a particular color that you like. Mura is very interesting, and I used to say it. No painting is complete without an artwork like this. So for your painting to come out well, so you need to add some artistic to it so that will make it more, because a lot of people in the world, they cherish artwork. Now, for example, now, this is lion. A lion represents our king, and the writing here, so it's all about this place, because this restaurant is not just a restaurant, it's a reggae restaurant. So that's why we have most of the color here, reggae color.
Ebenezer further explains that murals are a mode of expression for artists in every graphic style imaginable, abstract, photorealistic, expressionist, to name just a few.
Anyone.
And we're back with the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Nick Agule joins us this morning for Off the Press. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you on short notice.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Good morning. And good morning to our viewers.
Yes, please.
Globally.
Let's quickly take a look at the papers. Start off with the Punch. Punch talks about the CBN Forex ban. Nigerians imported 18 trillion cooking oil, meat. Others in 7 years, that's according to report. Importers ordered agri-animal product, orders from Asia and EU, African countries. Firms source dollars at parallel market over Forex ban on 41 items. And you also find another caption, federal government to repay World Bank $800 million loan for 25 years. Wow. Doctors in diaspora petitions National Assembly over anti-migration bill. And then Senate probes Accountant General over 74 billion naira funds. And just as we still look at the papers, Banana Island 7-story building collapse. Lagos alleged structure lacks permit. So how did the structure get to that point if it wasn't given any sort of permit? I mean, can anybody just wake up and erect a structure without getting the permit? Is it even possible? I want you to think about it. Then, Atiku dismisses exile plan and slams protesters. Police arrest 2 over OAU students' death. That's the size of it this morning on The Punch. We turn our attention away from The Punch and just quickly look at the Daily Independent. IMF okays tight fiscal policy and increased tax for Nigeria. Warns rising interest rates could trigger global recession. But I mean, I'm just confused because at some point you have the IMF saying, oh, increase the interest rate. And now they're saying, oh, the interest rate could actually trigger global recession. Where exactly is IMF on this particular one? And Senate sustains AGF's indictment over 74 billion naira extra budget payment. Kogi governorship election shocks as court nullifies Kogi APC ward and local government congresses. And then again, you find Labour Party crisis. State chairman stop Apapa from entering national secretariat. Atiku cannot help you win the Kogi governorship ticket. River State governor tells PDP Dino Melaye. I mean, you need to look at that conversation, the back and forth between Dino Melaye and, of course, Nyesom Wike of River State. Federal government okays 23 billion naira for Enugu Onitsha Road and Third Mainland Bridge. Approves 18.544 billion for renovation of customs, auditorium, and vehicles. Obi's trade duces impersonate him in London. United Kingdom Immigration Service reveals. I mean, that was part of our top trending this morning. And then you find Diri Iwayanwu emerges PDP governorship candidate in Bayelsa and in Imo State. And we'll just leave it at that. Interim government alien to Nigeria says the CSOs and cautions against Rwanda's experience. Now, we have the business day in front of us. Senate presidency raised stocks. Muslim tickets concern. Then again, you find election petition, what Nigeria can learn from Ghana and Kenya. Fight suspension, Nigerians cross border to fly Emirate. Flight suspension, Nigerians cross border to fly Emirate. And search for senior officers for next government turns to CBN governor. These are some of the headlines on the business day. And then we just quickly look at the Nation newspaper. Obi lacks right to contest my victory, Tinubu tells the tribunal. Okay, Shatima validly nominated as running mate. APC, Atiku PDP cannot query president's-elect's qualification. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of statement and back and forth with all of this. You find how Obi was detained in London by aid. G5 governors, mini convention plans deepens as PDP crisis also worsens. So it's like, okay, the G5 are planning. The crisis has not ended. National Stadium Surulere, the hard facts and more of an editorial. Presidential poll most credible in Nigeria's history. That's what Festus Keyamo is quoted to say. Observers report beavers high. All of this, you find that, right? But we'll just leave it at that. Nick Agule is on standby to share his thoughts. Nick, thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mercy.
I'd like you to, share your thoughts. I'm probably sure that prior to this time, you seen and heard the report of Peter Obi being detained. He's been impersonated. There's an impersonator when he arrived Heathrow Airport. What exactly do you think that this means? And what can you say to that? Do you think that there's a conspiracy somewhere?
Well, we live in the days of social media. In the days of the conventional media, usually news were verified, were confirmed, and probably filed in by a reporter who was on the scene, or newspaper houses or media houses, including TV and radio stations, picked their news from agencies like News Agency of Nigeria and all of that. So then whatever came up in the news was more to be credible than not. But these days, we live in the days of what perhaps is called the new media, which includes social media, and people have platforms, global platforms, to be able to spew out whatever they want to spew out. Some of the things that they are putting out there have some measure of credibility, and some are outright falsehood. In these times also, we have computers that have developed into artificial intelligence and all sorts of capabilities where people can superimpose people's pictures on particular scenes and make it look as if it's credible. Now you can even have people copy my voice and then use my voice to say whatever they want to say, and it will look legit that I'm the one saying it. So when this news come out, my own approach to it is that I wait to see it from the conventional media. I would like to see it on Plus TV or any other TV, or read it from a credible source before I will take to heart. Whatever it is, if that is indeed the case, it will not be long before even the British tabloids will publish it for us, and the British TV stations and radio stations will pick it up, because Peter Obi is no longer a non-entity. Peter Obi, as a front-running presidential candidate in a country like Nigeria, which is the signature of all eyes, if he has an issue like that, it will not be long before we know.
Put out by Obi Dati Media, and I don't think that if that came from them, and you also had the professor who's very notable, Professor Chinyere, who's a communication expert, I'm not sure that it's something that we begin to say there was names have been mentioned, and however, we've also not heard the United Kingdom, disclaiming that. Now, he was asked to step aside. There were witnesses. According to that report, it was because of the intervention of Nigerians around who had noticed that he had been away for a while, and that actually raised their concern. But not for that, one cannot actually tell. And that was when, the immigration officers decided to report that, oh, there's an impostor, someone is impersonating him, and that's it. So just to put on it, if you look at across, even on the papers this morning and different, media platforms, that has also been made. Also, the Obi Dati Media has not also come out to say that statement is not from us. So we still think that that's a thing to go by.
Well, we will, like I said, we need to give it a bit of a time.
So I understand where you're coming from. I totally get it where you're coming from, especially when you are in the United Kingdom. But then let's turn our attention to other interesting issues as well, which is on the Punch newspaper. It talks about the fact that Nigerians imported not less than 9 items worth 18.212 trillion naira from the forex ban list of the Central Bank of Nigeria. That's between 2016 and 2022. And interesting, some of these items, just like I mentioned, you'll have the cooking oil, you have meats, you have other items. What are your thoughts to this, really, that we pretty have to import some of this? Some of them are agricultural produce or product. What do you make of this?
There are two things I make out of this story. The first thing I make out of this story is that very often you hear the central bank governor disparaging the parallel market as an illegal market, as a market that should not be contenders with, and things like that. And Mercy, this report, it shows that the money that these people used in importing these items that are not on the central bank official list, the dollars were sourced from the parallel market. So the parallel market, I tell people, is a real market. It's a market where those whose importation needs are not on the official list of the CBN go to. And there is no reason why the central bank governor and other policymakers in Nigeria will continue to disparage this market. In fact, I once asked, I was in a debate with an economist, and I asked him, has he ever used his Nigerian debit card to go and spend abroad? If he did, what is the rate that the banks will use to convert his naira to the expenditure that he made in that foreign shop? It is the parallel market rate. The banks will not use the central bank rate. So this parallel market is a real market, and I want the new government, and this is setting the agenda for the new government, that they should simply cancel that so-called official market, because that official market is actually the illegal market. That is the market where people go collect dollars currently at 400 and something naira, and they just transfer it to the parallel market and sell it at 700 and something naira, making over 300 naira gain on a dollar. Imagine somebody that has access to only $1 million in the official market. If he then takes that market, round trips it to the parallel market, he's going to make 300 million naira without raising a finger to do anything. So the government of the new government coming into office should just cancel that central bank market. Let all of us be going to that parallel market to go and source money there. If you have dollars to sell, take it to that market. If you want to buy dollars, take it to that market. And this should include also government, so that we can really know the true rate of exchange of the naira and the dollar. That is the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is that it is a shame. It is a shame. This report should shame all of us, starting from our policymakers, our leaders, to the every man on the street. Why? Because why are we going to import things that we can produce in Nigeria by ourselves? Everything that is listed, we can produce it here. But we are so lazy and we are not producing, so we just enjoy going to go and buy from abroad. And it is going to buy from that abroad that is making the exchange rate to be weak, to make naira to be weak. Because you need a naira all the time to be chasing dollar to buy dollar. And the price of dollar is going to go up. It's a simple law of demand and supply. So again, setting the agenda for the incoming government, they should look inwards and boost production in Nigeria. And there are very simple things that they will need to take, very simple steps that they must take immediately once they get into office. One, begin to increase the power supply in Nigeria. At 3,000 megawatts, we keep singing, crying, wailing, and pleading. That 3,000 megawatts of electricity for Nigeria is just too small. South Africa is doing 50,000 megawatts. India is doing 400,000 megawatts. How can we be doing 3,000? That is number one. Number two, there has to be security in Nigeria immediately, so that farmers will go back to their farms. And then when the farmers go back to their farms, there has to be a support given to these farmers. As we speak today, majority of Nigerian farmers are still using their brute force energy, bending down with hoe and cutlass to farm. They need mechanization. They need to be supported with mechanization. What a tractor can produce in 1 year, what a tractor can produce in 1 day will take a farmer 10 years of his life to produce it. So these are the kind of basic things that Nigeria needs to put in place, so that we will rather be the exporter of food and other items instead of going to go and buy. And the consequence of boosting production is that it will not create jobs. It will create jobs. Imagine we have all the mechanized farms, we have all the processing factories, then we have the transportation, the shipping, and all of that. Majority of these jobless youths that we see these days will be gainfully employed. When you ask him, where are you working? He said, I'm working in one tomato plant. And it's a multi-billion-dollar tomato plant somewhere. I'm working in a one yam processing this thing. I work in one plantation in this place. That is where they'll be working. And then some of these insecurity issues that even we were discussing yesterday will be curtailed, because if the youth have jobs, they will be going to their work. They are not going to be available to people to be using for these nefarious acts that we're talking about.
But Nick Agule,
so these are my two views on this story.
Yes. So, but let's even look at, what it is that we're talking about, because it's not that these items that we're importing, we don't also produce them here. I think that we're producing them here, but then again, is it that we're not producing enough, to meet the demand, or is it that they're substandard? What could be the reason why we still have to be importing from other countries, just like you say, what we can produce? So I know, for instance, that, there's still production of palm oil, but is it enough? Is that the reason why? Why would we be patronizing what we can actually produce? Why are we buying what we can produce? And why are we not big on, ensuring that we can produce them and rather export them instead of being an importer of this, product?
I think there are two reasons there. The first one, which is the minor one, is that Nigerians over time have come to regard imported products higher than our locally produced product. That's why some people can package local rice and write foreign rice on it so that it will deceive consumers to pay higher prices for what they think is foreign rice. But I think it's a minor reason. The major reason is that we're simply not producing enough locally. You see, Nigeria has an economy of over 200 million people. It's a lot of people. You see the United Kingdom, where I'm sitting here, they're only 60-something million. 60-something million. You see most of these nations you see around, the Canada is like 33, 35 million, less than 40. So to have 200 million people, 200 million as a market is a lot. There's so much mouths to feed. So what we are producing is simply not enough. Mercy, there's a video I showed. I think there's a video I showed on this program one time. If you see what mechanized agriculture is, we would have been talking about if you leave Lagos all the way to Ibadan, to Ilorin, all the way to Sokoto, turn around, go head to Kano, to Maiduguri, down to Port Harcourt, Cross River. No single piece of land will be left uncultivated. Everything will be cultivated. Every piece of land, apart from where there's human settlement, there's a body of water or a forest, has a tractor on it that has cultivated. Look, if we have that in Nigeria, Mercy, you will know that nobody is going to bring a single bag of rice from outside into Nigeria. We will have enough food, we will attain food sufficiency, and then you will see cargo upon cargo of rice at Apapa being loaded onto ships to export them abroad. So we are simply not producing enough, and we cannot produce enough with 3,000 megawatts of electricity. That's the first point that the incoming government must tackle.
Let's get back to Lagos. It's also on the papers. I'm sure that you probably have seen that building that collapsed, structure somewhere, Banana Island. It reminds us of what happened in 9/11, real-time see the structure going down. However, a few persons are trapped, and we hear that lives have not been lost. Some persons have sustained injuries. The government has activated it. But however, government is saying that the building actually lacked permit. What are your thoughts? Do you believe that story, that building would have been erected without government's involvement?
I don't believe. But before I even discuss government involvement, let me say that I watched that video. I think somebody captured it. Maybe it is a security camera, because I'm just imagining how someone would have captured the moment that building came collapsing down. I watched that thing, and it sends, it's curdling, it's blood curdling. That is it. You are showing it now. Mercy, let me confess to you, I now have phobia to climb high-rise buildings in Nigeria. I think the probably the only high-rise buildings I can climb in Nigeria are the ones that have been standing there for years, for decades. Any new high-rise building in Nigeria, I think Nikagule will have issues trying to climb it. Because if you see a building collapse like a pack of cards, I think it's meant to be concrete, iron, and cement. It's meant to be a mixture, of concrete, iron, and cement. And if that thing can come collapsing like a pack of cards, it's scary. And now to say that the government is not aware, the government is aware. There is no way you'll be constructing anything anywhere that the government will not know. We see it. You will be passing on the road and you see somebody is trying to erect a fence, and government will come and mark a big X on it and say urban development board, this and that, council, this and that. And now you see a big building like that going up in a place like Banana Island, and government is not aware. Is aware. The people who are constructing the building must have gone to sort out the government people to take their eyes away from what is happening. And this is the reason why this thing will continue to happen unless certain measures are going to be taken. Again, setting the agenda for the incoming government. For something like this, between the Lagos state government and the federal government, if it means a new law should be enacted, let it be enacted. Whoever is involved in this thing, from the builder, from the owner of the building, from the government agencies that should have stopped these people, from suppliers of the raw material, the materials for this building, should all be arrested, tried, and put away to jail. You see, Mercy, we will not have a society that we all love to operate in if the government is not picking people off the street and putting them in jail. I'm sitting here in the United Kingdom.
But Nick Agule, if you say that the federal government and the state government needs to enact laws, again, I ask, is it that we don't have laws already guiding it? What's the guarantee that, there will be enforcement of these laws? Because in 2010, if you follow the pattern of, collapsed building in Lagos over time, the Lagos state government had passed into law, the Lagos State Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law. That was, planning law in 2010. And then under that, there were 3 agencies that were created under the ministry to ensure control. So you have under that the Physical Planning and Development Agencies under the ministry. So you have the Physical Planning and Urban Development Ministry. You also have the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority. You also have the Lagos Building Control Agencies. So within this ministry, you have 3 of these, arms working together. The reason they were established is to ensure that there's a lot of checks and balances to check all of these excesses in the system. And then again, we continue to have that. So yes, you're having response saying, oh, this structure didn't have a permit. So is it with the laws? Because what's the guarantee that even if you come up with a law and say, oh, whoever is involved, they'll be prosecuted? Is that not the same thing we see with people committing crime, terrorists, killing people, and no one is apprehended, no one is being arrested? If you look at the criminal code, what does it talk about murder? If you look at, there are too many laws. So what's the guarantee that, enacting another law is going to solve the problem that, those who are involved should be, sentenced or imprisoned, when we can't even follow the basic laws to ensure that we don't even have all of this happening?
I agree with you entirely, Mercy. I agree with you that Nigeria is a country of laws. We have so many laws. In fact, a country like the United Kingdom, where I'm speaking to you from now, does not even have a constitution. The UK does not have a written constitution. Whereas Nigeria has a constitution, we have all sorts of laws. So the problem is about law enforcement. The bit where I touched about lawmaking was that if in the current laws that we have, there is no specific law that addresses matters like building collapse, where if a building collapses, then the owner of the building, the builder himself, the architect, the engineers, those who supply the building materials, the government agencies that should have ensured that that building was constructed in line with regulations, all those involved should be picked up, tried, and locked away. Until we begin to lock people away, lock bad people away, Nigeria can never be a good country where we love to live in. This UK, where I'm speaking to you from now, they have 80,000 people locked away in prison. And some are also in prison at their homes. That is what you call suspended sentence. You actually jail someone for 3 years and suspend it because you allow him to be at his home, but you are watching him. If he commits that crime again, he will be taken to prison straight away without going through a judge again. So until we start picking people and putting them away to prison, we are not going to have a country that we enjoy. We allow bad people and good people to coexist, and that is very bad. That is rotten tomatoes with good tomatoes in the same basket. That whole basket of tomatoes is going to be rotten, and this is the problem we are having. So it's more about law enforcement. If there are laws already, like you are rightly saying, in Lagos State, for instance, that prevent things like this, or they guide against things like this, then let the Lagos State government act on this. By today, the owner of that building should be arrested. His builder, his architect, his engineers, everyone that is involved in that building should be arrested, put through trial, and locked away. Mercy, this is the only way we can enjoy Nigeria.
All right, then. But just as we, move away from the paper review, this would just be the last, but it's on the Daily Trust. The fact that the International Monetary Fund is imploring the government to undertake fiscal consolidation. They are saying it's okay to tighten fiscal policy, increase tax for Nigeria. And do you think that that's, really good for economy, like more tax at this particular point in time where unemployment rate has actually gone, on the other side, it's on the high. And then you also have the fact that the Naira scarcity had left us with a lot of scar. Then you also have the fact that we haven't even recovered totally from COVID-19. Should we think about more tax on the people?
The IMF is wrong to prescribe more taxes. What we need in Nigeria is to widen the tax bracket and bring in taxes from people who are not paying tax now. In Nigeria, the people paying tax are the poor people. Poor people, like if you go to the market now, they are cutting a ticket for those market women. Every day cutting ticket, they are paying taxes. And then those who are working, they take pay from their pay slip immediately. How much tax did Dangote pay? How much personal income tax did Dangote, Otedola, the global company, Tony Elumelu paid last year? These are the conversations that we're not having. Elsewhere in the world, people like Tony Elumelu, Dangote and co, they will be publishing their tax returns every year so that we Nigerians will be seeing that, they paid X billions at tax because of the money they have. The big men in Nigeria are not paying taxes. And what government needs to do is to bring them into the tax bracket, increase tax on an already struggling population. People are finding it difficult to feed their families. If we increase the tax rate, it will end up being the same workers who will pay through their pay and those market women. So that's what Nigeria needs. We need to get the big men to come in with their taxes. And then but then I want to say something. Which probably the IMF didn't address, or they took their eyes away from. Mercy, we have been having issues. To manage an economy, you need monetary policy, which the central bank runs, and you need fiscal policy, which the Ministry of Finance runs. For probably the past 8 years, there has been conflict between fiscal policy and monetary policy in Nigeria. The central bank is busy increasing interest rate to fight inflation. The government is busy going to borrow money from central bank to push into the economy, to flare up the inflation the more. And the government is building budgets, calling it budget of growth. How can there be growth when interest rate is increasing and manufacturers are no longer having access to credit to produce? So there has been a conflict between these policies and what is needed for the incoming government. Again, setting agenda for the incoming government is to harmonize economic management. Let us have a strong economic management team where both monetary policy and fiscal policy will go together hand in hand. They are two lungs in the same body, and one cannot be breathing in while the other is breathing out. It's going to be a catastrophe, and that's what we have been witnessing, especially in the past 8 years.
Let's just let it go at this point in time. We would continue to talk about these issues. We won't relent. Thank you so much for always lending your voice to some critical national concerns right here in Nigeria. We do appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Mercy, and a nice day to all our viewers.
All right, then that's the size of Off the Press for us this morning. On The Breakfast, we have been speaking with a public affairs analyst, Nika Gule, who joined us this morning via Zoom from the United Kingdom. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll delve straight to our first conversation. Please stay with us. Good morning.
Nigeria is a country that God has really blessed for real, but it wasn't like this before. The situation we're passing through now in this country is, I don't know what to say, but I just pray that God should help us. Nobody is free now in the country. Things are happening every day. There's no security. People's lives is at risk, and even their properties. We don't know why it shouldn't be like this, but it's only God that we were praying for Him to interfere for us.
We don't have the security in the country, and it's giving us problem. Like me now, I have to attend a burial in my village next month. I have been praying over 2 months ago that God secure my going and my fro and my throw to come back. So we are fear. We are even fearing that the Taliban will not take the control of the government in Nigeria.
Actually, the way things are going in this country, I'm not happy personally, because I can see Nigeria with AD is not be like before because of the settlement, and number two, economy, that the way they are using things to us, we are not happy. I wish Nigeria can be able to buckle up, we be one according to what they are saying. I did not see that Nigeria be one again. The settlement is too much. Tribalism. That is why make things difficult for this country to us. We are praying to God. May God give us the righteous person to rule. Who is the righteous person? So only God can prove it out to us.
The insecurity thing is too much, and it's getting more worse each and every day. From the rural areas to the towns to the cities, and most especially at this very particular time that the election is about to take place, people are not secured, things are not moving fine. Maybe that's why. So I believe that the government should do more to make sure that they secure life and properties, individually. Each and every Nigerian has the right to live free in any part of the country.
The issue of security for Nigeria today, it become critical. And the solution, not that there's no solution, there's solution, but those that are standing there does not want to bring the solution. How can you say security go like this, then another person come like this? The people that come like this, the security is supposed to attack them. He leaves the people that the security is supposed to attack the innocent ones. So my own opinion for concerned issue of security is that let them resolve the security, change the old ones that is there, bring the new ones in.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 they pay.
increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. On the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
So yes, we're back with the breakfast. With the first conversation, it's about unemployment and the fact that unemployment rate in Nigeria is set to hit 40 or 41%. Now, according to reports from the KPMG, says that the Nigerian unemployment rate had increased to 37.7% in 2022 and will further increase to 40.6% due to the continuing inflow of job seekers into the labor market. The multinational consulting firm in its newly released report said unemployment will continue to be a challenge due to the slower than required economic growth and instability of the economy to absorb 4 to 5 million new entrants into the Nigerian job market every other year. Now, although the National Bureau of Statistics recorded an increase in the national unemployment rate from 23.1% in 2018 to 33.3% in 2020, estimates that this rate has increased to 37.7% in 2022 and will further increased to 40.6% 2023. The report also said that, in 2024, the unemployment rate will continue to grow to 43%, while inflation will accelerate to 20.3% in 2023 and 20.0% in 2024. We have a guest joining us this morning, Kelvin Emmanuel, who's an economist and CEO of Diary Hills in the FCT. Kelvin, it's good to have you join us this morning. Many thanks.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. And when we have reports saying that unemployment rate would actually further increase to 40.6%, what does that really mean?
Well, that means that production is tethering. The cost of capital is high. You can see that from the recent report that the rate is up to 37.7% and is expected to go up to about 40.6% in 2023. And you can see that Unilever Nigeria, for example, has written to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the NGX, about its plans to take off some products out of the market. Interestingly, the debate is raging about the reason why Unilever will do that. But I'll tell you categorically that Unilever is finding it difficult to source for enterprise products from outside Nigeria for its manufacturing line. It's finding it difficult to repatriate FX. And it's been forced to shut down some of its products. It has nothing to do with competition, because some people are alleging that it's because of so much competition. And the question I have for them is, how those legacy products that the company has spent billions marketing over the years that has become household names be subject of competition battle in the detergent space? Soap detergent, it's unimaginable. So, when they claw back production, jobs are lost. And the per capita income of Nigerians has gone down nearly 50% over the last 8 years. So it's a complete disaster, coupled with the fact that, a government is saying that it has borrowed $800 million from the International Development Association, an arm of the World Bank, through pledging SDRO from its stock of SDRO with the IMF special drawing rights as a collateral for that loan. So it's a very messy situation because, this government has shown over time that it lacks the willpower, it lacks the framework through which it can incentivize the private sector to create jobs and, keep people in employment and keep the per capita income high. It's shown it. And the last 8 years have been a complete disaster because no economic indicator has, pointed positive or has shown growth. I expect that in the Q2 GDP report, IMF says they're expecting it to be about 3.2%. I expect that GDP report will show 2.8 to 2.9%, which is a contraction. And when your population is growing faster than your GDP, that is an indication of a recession.
So, but then again, what could be responsible for this continuous, increase in the unemployment rate? For instance, the National Bureau of Statistics had recorded some sort of increase at the time in 2018. It was at 23.1% to about 33%. So what are the indices? What are the indicators that over time you seem to be on the high? Despite government policies, despite, social intervention programs and what have you, we seem to be, going on with the higher statistics. And also it's, according to this report in 2014, it probably might not just be different because we might just get it a little bit higher with what we might experience in 2023.
I've never believed in social investment programs. The GIP, the Empower, the school feeding program, and conditional cash transfer. I keep saying it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because people don't need you to give them fish. You need to teach them how to catch fish. And the way you can do that is incentivize the private sector and make it, in fact, Naira exam policy was responsible for really, really wiping off a substantial part of the informal economy because so many micro businesses shut down. So many micro businesses that did between 5,000 naira to 5 million, they shut down. And these are the people who create about 50 to 60% of the jobs. So, when you have a situation where people's businesses, the person who sells fruit or the person who does POS vending machine, you notice very well if you go that quite a number of the POS vendors are not back in business. Despite the fact that the CBN was compelled by the Supreme Court to allow 500 and 1,000 naira notes back. Those POS vending points created more than 100,000 jobs around Nigeria. So you can imagine a substantial part of them taking off the markets. Those people were earning. Those people who own the POS vending points were earning 500,000-600,000 naira per month. The people who worked for them were earning 40,000-50,000 naira per month. They were creating jobs above minimum wage. Those people have been taken off the market. The person who sells fruits, the person who sells provision, the person who sells rice, in retail, they were taken off the markets. So it's difficult for you to understand the employment indices if you don't focus on the informal economy, because the informal economy were the most impacted by the scarcity of naira notes. And then you can see that reflect in the job numbers.
So just before we begin to look at the solution, you have talked about paying attention to the informal economy. But then again, I like us to, put statistics like with numbers now. So if we say that there's a possibility of having 41% of, the population unemployed, what does that really mean? How many million persons are we looking at, at the end of the day? And what's the implication of this for our economy, especially our security?
Well, you have to consider that about between like if you look at the population from 21 to about 40, within that band, you have maybe 45% of Nigerians. You have a Gen Z that has just come on into the labor force. So when you say 40.6% unemployment rates, underemployment, you're looking at maybe somewhere around maybe 60 million of the working population that is out of the markets. And this doesn't speak well about insecurity, because if you look at the budget for education, you notice that the budget for education, the personnel to capex ratio is very high. The budget for education is 4.9% of the 2023 Appropriation Act. And I always say that if you ignore education, you are going to breed insecurity, because whatever you don't pay for in education, you pay for in defense. And if you can see, there is a direct correlation between the fact that there is a high literacy rate in the north and the insecurity in the north. It's not rocket science. There are states in the north where illiteracy rate is somewhere around 85 to 88%. Yeah. Look at the correlation with the insecurity in the north. So you have to understand that because the government has failed to focus its budget on the key metrics, education, for example, right? According to the Abuja Declaration that the government signed, it says that it's going to adopt the UNESCO standard of focusing 15% of its budget on education since 2010. Under President Buhari, that has gone down by about 3 to 4% to 4.98%, right? And you can see very well that it has an impact in the inability of the government in 2022 to pay ASU. Some people last year dropped out of school because of the strike. You know, some people moved abroad. You begin to see that our inability to focus on investing in education, because you cannot pay lecturers their salary, they are not motivated and incentivized to teach properly. It has an impact. And going forward, you said we were going to talk about the solutions. Going forward, see, you need to change the structure fundamentally, because it's my belief that looking at the structure of the budget, where you have 29% in sinking fund that is going into refinancing and paying interest on debt, and you have somewhere around 31.5% going into paying PMS subsidy, even if PMS subsidy is going to be removed in the third quarter of 2023, the government needs to understand that for it to fund education, it needs to change the structure of education in Nigeria, the administration of education, that fund, the NUC, the Ministry of Education. Something needs to fundamentally change. Okay? Because government alone cannot fund quality education. 2 million Nigerians going into the university system on a yearly basis. It's not practicable with a budget that is 4.9% of 21.8 trillion naira. It's not possible. It's just not working. The government needs to accept that this model we've had, where you have students paying 19,000 naira, even if it's come up for debate over time, 19,000 naira, 15,000 naira, 40,000 naira school fees annually, it's just not working. It's not working. You can't teach somebody how to be an engineer, or how to be a medical doctor, or how to be an architect that will compete with his mates in the UK and in America or in Singapore or South Korea with 40,000 naira. It's just not practicable. We need to sit down and have an elite consensus on how to change the structure fundamentally of this economy.
Now, talking about changing the structure of, the economy, you have mentioned education as, a key pointer. and some sort of government policy in terms of budgeting to whether education or health. But again, let's also look at, the type of education that we offer. Now, and I know that we're very big on the conventional university, and so people just go in there and just get a degree. But yes, we probably might just have, the vocational institution. But don't you think that there might just be need to pay attention to, in the bid to address this issue of unemployment, to, have more attention paid to vocational education, where people can literally get to learn a lot about maybe skills, acquiring more skills, technical skills that can actually help solve day-to-day problems, carpentry, what have you, and all the stuff, rather than the continued, having more conventional universities across the different parts of the country.
I absolutely subscribe to that. In fact, I believe that we need to revive vocational education because, and this is the reason why the polytechnics were created in the first place, but we lost the plot along the way. The polytechnics were not created to have students sit in lecture rooms and write notes. The polytechnics were created to see how they could simulate vocational training for students, carpentry, tiling, upholstery, different kinds of vocational skills, hairdressing, makeup, different kinds of vocational skills. There are makeup artists today who make 100,000 naira per day. I don't see why you have an economy where people feel that the person who is a medical doctor is more prestigious and is a better human being than the person who is a makeup artist or the person who is a carpenter. It's in Nigeria where people discriminate against plumbers. But when you travel to London and you ask a plumber to come fix something in your house and he gives you a bill and tells you that your bill is £600, you begin to think again. You begin to ask yourself if the plumber is even earning better than some medical doctors and nurses in the UK. So we need to mainstream vocational training in polytechnics. That's the reason why polytechnics were created. Polytechnics, like I said, were not created to have people sit down in lecture rooms and write notes. And at the end of the day, they come out and what they learned in school does not have any marketplace value, which is what you see today.
You've also talked about it. I know you have mentioned the metrics of what sort of metrics that we need to pay attention to. So what are the key metrics that government need to pay attention to? You have different stakeholders, the private sector, as well as citizens of the country. So we're able to get out of this quagmire that we're in.
First of all, the government needs to raise revenue to GDP ratio from 7.5%. The government needs to restructure its debt. It needs to stop borrowing from the central bank so that you will not have continuous naira devaluation that has affected the cost of importation, because naira devaluation makes it more expensive to import for companies and contributes to inflation, which is what you've seen over the last 4 years especially. The government needs to change its medium-term expenditure framework and reallocate the structure of its budget. In my opinion, I think the government needs to focus 30% of its budget from 2024 on education and healthcare. Healthcare is also 4.98% of 21.8 trillion. And the personnel to capex ratio is abysmal. The personnel to capex ratio is about 2.7 times the capex, with a ministry overhead of 22.4%. The government needs to focus on ensuring that it can reduce the amount of circulation of cash in the system to reduce cost-push inflation, and it can work on backward integration for key sectors to focus on reducing demand pull inflationary buffers. If it gets that inflation number down below 20%, the MPR will begin to come down. The MPR begins to come down.
I'm sorry that we have to come in at this point. I'm told that we have less than 2 minutes to go at this point, but I then think that let me ask you quickly if you think that if subsidies removed in June, do you think that this would also, tingle with the figure of unemployment, I mean, also real time, would it also affect, the figure that we have now, looking at 41%? Do you think that would also impact on unemployment rate as it is? Would there be an increase? Are we expected to experience a decrease? What do you think would happen with that exact policy?
If you remove PMS subsidy and Dangote refinery does not start immediately before you remove it, petrol prices will go to $1.05 per liter. I'm expecting somewhere between 782 and 790 naira per liter. If Dangote starts, 27% of the cost of handling it will be taken off, because that's what it costs to land PMS in Nigeria. So you're going to bring PMS to somewhere around 580 naira. Maybe when it's taken out of the refinery depot, you have somewhere around 600 naira. So definitely it's going to contribute to inflation, and it might even price some people out of business. The plan, like I said, that the government has of giving out 10,000 naira per month, between 7 and 10,000 naira per month as palliative, is completely, it's not going to have any impact whatsoever. If there was time, I would have talked about what the government should have invested that $800 million in.
So at this point, are you saying that we are expecting to have a lot of people out of, their jobs? People will be jobless. Will people lose their jobs?
Especially in the informal side of the economy. I'm expecting that the price of PMS will price them out of the markets, because they especially in the service sector, people won't be able to produce at a reasonable price for the people who patronize them to afford them. So they'll be priced out of the market.
We have to go at this point. Thank you so much, Calvin. Emmanuel, we've had a great conversation this morning, and we can't stop. We'll continue to talk about these issues as we proceed.
Thanks for having me.
All right, then that's the size of it this morning. On the first segment, we take a break. When we return, our concern would be on the issue of the elections. I mean, the elections have come and gone, but the issues with the elections or from the elections have not ended. I'm sure that we'll continue to talk about this up until, the end of 2023 or further. We'll just be looking at the fact that INEC is saying that electronic collation of results are not compulsory. That is in response to the APP political party that had questioned the credibility of their election. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Here are success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on Plus TV Africa.
Well, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says its laws did not make it compulsory to transmit the 2023 presidential election result electronically. The electoral body made it position known while responding to a petition that was filed before the Presidential Election Petition Court in the FCT by the Action People's Party, that's the APP, challenging the outcome of the 2023 presidential election. However, the APP in its petition had challenged the All Progressive Congress APC candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's victory of the February 25th elections on the grounds that the electoral umpire failed to transmit the result electronically. But INEC, through one of its lawyers, Abubakar Mahmood, SAN, insisted that the presidential elections of 2023 was free, fair, insisting that the Electoral Act does not require the electronic transmission of results. The electoral body also denied the allegation that its officials tampered with the result in order to favor a particular political party or its candidate, and which was, some people described that there was a situation of excess voting. But then to make sense of all of this, we have a legal practitioner who joins us, is a former NBA chairman, Dr. Paul Ebiala. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Dr. Paul Ebiala, if you can hear me, please unmute your device.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your invitation to your station.
Yes, please. So let's share your thoughts on this one. You have had the thoughts of INEC. They're saying that the transmission of result was not, mandatory. The Electronic Act did not mandate that results would be transmitted electronically. And so it was more like they had options. However, what do you make of it, especially when, the Beavers and INEC, it was really a big deal. They constantly said results will be transmitted electronically. There will be real time, checking of results. And I think that was the reason why a lot of people went out, to cast their votes. So, but what do you make of this recent statement by the umpire?
Well, okay. Before I comment, I think it is proper to put on record that when a matter is before the court, in the legal parlance, we say that that matter is sub judice. And when a matter is sub judice, it means that it is still before the court for trial. And so there is hardly anything much that we can say about such a matter. But that notwithstanding, we could also express our opinion as people, not challenging what is in the court or not talking about what precisely is in the court. Now, answering your question directly, well, it is rather unfortunate to hear this from the umpire that it is not mandatory to transmit results electronically. Well, I know that the Electoral Act, precisely Section 148 of that Act, empowers the Commission, of course, to make regulations, guidelines, or manuals for the purpose of giving effect to the provisions of the Act. And it was on that base that the Commission made the regulations and manuals, of course, that guided the 2023 election. Now, if you look at Section 50 down to 55 of that regulation, there is an aspect of it that talks about electronic transmission of results. Now, if you look at Section 50 precisely, that talks about election collation, result collation at the polling unit level. At that polling unit level, it is there are several responsibilities of the collation officer, or rather, the presiding officer. And when a law says shall means, mandatory, something that is mandatory. The law, Section 50, paragraph 50 of that regulation talks about the registration area, that is the word collation officer, shall. The word shall here means that it is mandatory that that must be done. Then it lists quite a number of functions that he must carry out. One of which is important to us here, one of which is that electronically transmit or transfer the result directly to the next level of collation as prescribed by the Commission. Now, the Commission came out to talk to us, even before the election, loud and clear, trying to talk about the integrity of the election or the expected integrity of the election, the 2023 election. And it talked about election results being transmitted electronically to, of course, the INEC server. In fact, like you say, that was the reason why everybody felt that this time around we are going to have a credible election. We are going to have election of votes that will be counted or that will count. And people came out to exercise their franchise because they believe that their votes will count. That is because the Commission had given us the impression that, of course, results were going to be transmitted electronically. Now, and that is backed up by, the law, the regulation made by the Commission itself. At the polling unit level, it is expected that electronically, results be transmitted electronically. Then at the local government level, it is also expected that at that level, election, if you go down to 53, regulation 53, where at the local government level, it talks about the responsibility of the collation officer at that level. And several of them, it says several of them, including, of course, the aspect of, it says electronically transmit or transfer the result direct to the next level, and that is the state level. We're talking about the presidential election now and the National Assembly election. So all of this, if you go down up to 50 at the various levels of collation, that is exactly what the law says. So to say at this point that it is not mandatory that results are to be transferred, were to be transmitted electronically, it is something that is, belittling of a commission as huge as the Electoral Commission that was the umpire of this entire, election. So, like I say, the matter is sub judice. I can only look at it on the surface as I am looking at it because these are clear, provisions of the law. And these are not things that one will, at the end of the day, the courts will take their decision after giving their due interpretation to the various sections. But it will not be completely correct to say that it is not mandatory that results should be transmitted electronically. When your regulation has stated so, using the word shall, and apart from that, you have come out to tell the world that elections or rather results are going to be transmitted electronically.
But then again, you can also take out the fact that also in that paragraph that you have made reference to, that of 50 to 55, it talks about the regulation and guidelines for the conduct of the presidential election allows the Commission to use alternate means of collection. That's simple English, like you can use any other means to collate this result. So again, do you think that INEC acts contrary to the laws, or we probably just have lacunas in our laws?
Well, if at this point we want to agree with INEC that it decided to use the alternative means, then coming to tell the world that it was going to use or transmit results electronically, then that is deceit of the first order. It means that the Commission was deceiving the entire country in the first place. Because if you know between the alternative method and the electronic transmission of results, you know too well that one of them must be more credible. And that was why you came to the world and you were telling the whole world that the results were going to be transmitted electronically. And people jumped at it. People believed that was going to be the most credible method of transmitting a result. So if you use the alternative means or method, and you are now coming to capitalize on that to say that because the law does not mandate you to transmit electronically, that is deceit. the first order. And I don't think this touches on the integrity of the commission itself. You ask me.
But do you agree that, that part of the rules and regulations or the guideline for the commission allows them to use an alternative method to collate results?
Well, when you talk about alternative measures, I know method. You see, it is nothing like, it is not as if there is an alternative method. These two methods were to be used simultaneously. And that means at this level, when it is collated at the local government, the polling unit level, when results are collated, of course, they will be collated in the various forms, EC8E, and so on, depending on the particular election. Now, this will be done. At the end of it, it is expected that the result that has been entered in this form or in these forms will be transmitted electronically to the other level of collation. That is the whole. So one was to complement the other. So when you tell me that you had an alternative method of collation of results, and so you can jettison one completely, it is not totally correct. They were to be complementary to each other. That is to say, at the point where you collate manually, yes, of course, manual collation was necessary and was needed. And so when you do the manual collation, that is the reason why the result is snapped or scanned. It is at that point that it's expected that is now transmitted. What was done manually is now transmitted electronically to the other end. So I do not see any reason why anybody would say that because there is an alternative means of doing that or mode of doing that, then that meant that the electronic transmission was to be jettisoned. That is not correct.
Don't you think that we should be paying attention to the fact that our laws actually leaves a lot of ambiguity? There are too many gray areas in our rules, guidelines. They're not specifics. And it feels like those who are policy formulators or those who make these laws or, those who are on the other side of the divide take advantage of all of these lacunas and then they begin to exploit the system. So should, again, we be blaming INEC or should we be looking at the fact that, the laws were not very specific as to whether we say it is compulsory that elections or result has to be collated, via the beavers, despite what the umpire said?
Now, I'll let you know that there is no law in the entire world that has to be totally complete. That means that there is no time, even under the advanced countries, the developed democracies, you cannot expect that a particular document containing the laws of that land will explain everything or provide for everything, completely everything. No. Look, some of these things are left for interpretation, and that is why the courts are there. So it is not expected that every damn thing that is required must be put in the law. Then you can imagine the size of the law of the constitution that we'll have, or the size of the electoral act that we're going to have. So a lot of other things are left for, interpretation. So if they are not, you cannot actually say that they are deliberate. They are deliberate because if you want to be specific on all items, then of course we will not be able to. So I think that the law has made sufficient provision unless somebody wants to be, mischievous to say that this law is, there is a lacuna, and so you capitalize on that lacuna. No, I think this is mischief. It will simply be mischief. There is no law.
Dr. Paul Ebiala, are we not saying that the fact that we constantly allow everything for interpretation by the court, is that not why we are where we are today? Because we over time think that we don't have to include every detail. We're people that we have to be very specific. It's like saying, Messi, I want to see you. And then I wake up to say, well, I didn't show up. So you asked me, why didn't you show up? And I said, well, you were not specific as to when you want me to see me. There was no detail. So the point again is it not that there's no time for all of that. We just have to move away. But my concern here is, where we are today as a people and as a nation? Is it because we have allowed everything to interpretation, and usually the interpretation, hasn't yielded any positive result? We understand that you can't, add all of the details, but is it not, rather important that we are very detailed, knowing the kind of people that we are, the kind of society it's peculiar to us, that we're very detailed about everything. So on the one hand, the umpire tells us that we're going to have, an elections where results will be transmitted via the beavers. The beavers were really the selling point for the 2023 elections. And then, it fell short of its expectation. With all of the conviction, with all of the promises, the trials that we had, then you're also having the umpire saying it was not mandatory that we transmit the result with the beavers because the guidelines and the laws actually gives us, an alternative. And so we decided to use our discretion. Dr. Paul Abiala, we will have this conversation some other time, and thank you so much for being part of the show. I know you want to say something, but just less than a minute,
very
please.
much. Yes, maybe my last, this will totally amount to what we say, what we call approbation and reprobation on the part of the commission. Because if you have come out to claim that you are going to give an election that will be almost impeccable, then at this point you're coming out to put up, this kind of defense. Then it is approbation and reprobation. Well, it's okay. It will be tested in the court. The courts all of these matters are before the court, and at the end of the day, we'll hear the various interpretations that will be given.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, please. Dr. Paul Abiala is a former MBA chairman, Cross River State. He's also a legal practitioner and an academic director. We do appreciate your time, and that's the size of our conversation this morning on the show. We take a break to join the newsroom at 9 o'clock for the news brief. Please stay with us. Now, if you missed out on any part of the conversation from 7 o'clock up until now, we ask that you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel to be part of the show. We're at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. My name is Messi Ebopo. Have a great morning.
According to Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olorunimbe Mamora, about 18 states in the Federation are still endemic, with more than 1,000 new leprosy cases yearly. He explained that the number of new leprosy cases detected yearly has significantly dropped from over 7,827 in 1994 to less than 2,000 in 2020. The Voice of Humanitarian AIDS Foundation took to the streets to march against the ostracization of people affected by leprosy and loud about changing the narrative. At her office, the National Coordinator of Voice of Humanitarian AIDS, Franca Emekobum, shared the group's experiences on the field with people affected by leprosy.
Even we that are even speaking up for them, sometimes, it wasn't easy for our families and our friends to even accept, that what we are doing is not risky. They are even afraid to come close to me. They're scared. Initially they say, oh, no. We don't want you and your leprosy people, please.
Franca maintained that discriminating against the people with leprosy in itself is a deadly disease.
Already they are in pain. Already they are in sorrow. We should not add to that sorrow by discriminating against them. Rather, we should, come together as, people of God, one nation, one love, one family.
Dr. Yohen Akase is the head of infectious diseases at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Luth. He confirmed that leprosy is not contagious.
With leprosy, the truth of the matter is that over 90% of people, in fact, that's a conservative estimate to be honest, but over 90% of people who get exposed to leprosy are not going to have leprosy. Okay? So yes, it's not such a contagious infectious disease in the context of how we look at contagion, that if somebody has leprosy, touches you, you're going to get leprosy. In fact, it's well known that there are a certain, for lack of a better word, genetic predispositions to getting, not everybody is going to get leprosy, even if they get exposed to that. Picking somebody who has already had a deformity at that time to keep him isolated, apart from the fact that it's not interrupting the chain of transmission, it has, like you said, it entrenches the concept of stigma, denies them of being productive, being rehabilitated and getting on with their lives, living a normal life as possible. And also, generally, doesn't achieve much, to be honest.
G. Mohammed is a survivor of leprosy. He was affected at the age of 19 when he gained admission into Ahmadu Bello University but could not continue his studies.
That was 1999, the first time I just detected that I got a leprosy, because I don't even know that it's a leprosy before. I was just told that I have some patches in my body, which I was just thinking that it's just be a ringworm. They are calling it a las egedomi. And I went to some people that are selling the herbs, that okay, I need the herbs for this thing, and they give it to me, and I'm using it. After using it, I don't even see any changes. That is why my mom just took me to one herbalist, which we are calling Babalawo, and the man just said that this one is leprosy.
The father of 3 recalled how he battled with discrimination.
During that time, I have some challenges with some maybe neighbors, even in where I'm living with my mom. One of the person that, the owner of the house, because we rented that house by then, we just said that this one we have to take it outside, because his father has house. Definitely you should go to his father's house. Don't let me lie to you. My faith is not solid by then, because I was just thinking, asking God, why me?
The survivor is the chairman of the Association of People Affected with Leprosy and the PRO of the national body. He is particular about ensuring that nobody with leprosy ends up as a beggar on the streets.
Good morning, I am Justin Akadonia, and this is the news brief from Plus TV Africa. Now, the Lagos State government says it has begun an investigation to unravel circumstances surrounding the collapse of a building in Banana Island, Ikori area of the state on Wednesday. The building caved in when some of the construction workers on site had closed for the day. Some of them were, however, injured as a result of the collapse. The Deputy Director of Public Affairs of the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, Mukaila Sanusi, said that Commissioner Tayo Gbangbo Martins was on site to assess the situation and flag off investigation. Now to political parties. The Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council has disclosed that the party's presidential candidate Peter Obi was detained and interrogated for hours by immigration officials at the Heathrow Airport, London, over offences allegedly committed by an imposter. The Campaign Council, in a statement sent by the head of media of the Obi Dati, Diron Onifade, raised an alarm, stating that the imposter of Obi, who is still at large, may commit various crimes that would lead to the arrest of Peter Obi in the United Kingdom. The statement revealed that the presidential candidate of the party, who is in court challenging the outcome of the February 25 presidential election in Nigeria, was arrested at the Heathrow Airport for duplication. Now, the National Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, has emerged the People's Democratic Party's governorship candidate for the November 11 Imo State governorship election. This followed the PDP's primary held on Wednesday by the party's primary in the state secretariat along the Okigwe Road in Oyo, the state capital. Anyanwu is expected to challenge the re-election of Governor Hope Uzodinma of the All Progressives Congress APC. The Supreme Court had sacked Ihe Dionha as the governor of Imo State in January 2020 after 7 months in office. Off-cycle governorship elections are expected to be held in Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo State on the 11th of November.
I know there's a task ahead, and I intend to show that by the special grace of God and the support of Imo people, this task will be achieved. I live here in Imo State. All my political life is here in Imo State. Like I said, Imo people and I know them. We have only one achievement: to bring back peace, to bring security back in this state. And that we're going to do with the help of others. It's not just me. I'm just going to be the driver of the vehicle. And I have others that will be occupants that will support me in this task. Okay, we know. First of all, all of you stay here in this state. One, for us to achieve and develop the state, there must be peace. First of all, have to secure the state. Our major point is to secure the state. To be able to revamp the economy, we are going to invest in the youths, and we are going to carry along the people in our decision making.
The governor of Bayelsa State, Doye Diri, has been declared as the People's Democratic Party's flag bearer for the upcoming governorship election scheduled for November the 11th. The announcement was made by Governor Ademola Adeleke of Osun State, who served as the chief returning officer for the party's governorship primaries. Adeleke announced that Diri emerged victorious with 305 votes out of 315 delegates who were present at the Gabriel Okara Cultural Center in Yenagoa, the state capital.
By the power vested in me as the chairman, chief returning officer, I hereby declare Senator Doye Diri as the winner.
Today, we have had one of the best primaries in the history of our party in Bayelsa State. It is therefore with this utmost joy and a very grateful heart to all of us in the People's Democratic Party, the leaders, the followers, and all alike, I do accept your nomination as the candidates of our great party, the People's Democratic Party, to contest the November 11th gubernatorial elections in Bayelsa State.
I've not heard of anybody who wanted to contest with him and was deprived of it. The man has done well, and all of us feel he should go back without any antagonism, without any disturbance. So it's going on. See the achievements I've been making in the state. They are marvelous achievements, silent achiever. It's achieving in all the local government areas of the state.
Doye Diri is somebody who have come to unify Bayelsa. Is somebody who doesn't segregate people on party lines, who have come to bring everybody together.
Straight now to Niger State, where the State Independent Electoral Commission has revealed that all arrangements are set for the conduct of supplementary elections for the State House of Assembly sits in 15 polling units of 4 local government areas. The Resident Electoral Commissioner, Ahmed Yushar Garki, made this known at a stakeholders meeting at the INEC headquarters in Mina, the state capital. The supplementary election will hold on Saturday, 15th of April.
We have done a very good job, but we should also acknowledge where there are some pockets of problems here and there. We will also look at it critically and try to see how we can, if not eradicate it all, to minimize so that this supplementary election at the end of the day, it will be better off than what we did.
We're staying with the election matters. The ruling All Progressives Congress APC has adopted the direct mode of primary for the conduct of the governorship primary election in Kogi State on Saturday. The party initially announced an indirect primary based on the request of the State Working Committee, but was reversed following protest by aspirants and party stakeholders who voted the delegate list forwarded to the party's national headquarters, alleging that the process for compiling the list was questionable. Our correspondents gathered that the party, through the acting national chairman, Senator Abubakar Kyari, has informed the Independent National Electoral Commission and the 17 aspirants of its decision to adopt the direct mode. A federal high court in Abuja has voided the February 7, 2023 list of the delegates admitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC by the All Progressives Congress APC in Kogi State for its forthcoming governorship primary election. Justice James Omotosho, in a judgment, held that there was no evidence before the court to show that the valid special world congresses were held from which the said delegates emerged. Now, Justice Omotosho also noted that the party failed to provide credible evidence that INEC monitored the said congress or congresses from which the names on delegate list were derived. The judge who restrained INEC from accepting and acting on the delegates list said the APC in Kogi State still has an opportunity with the existing time frame to conduct valid special world congresses to elect delegates who will elect their party's candidate for the governorship poll.
The APC in Kogi State ought to have conducted special world congresses to elect delegates that will eventually elect the party's candidates for the governorship election, but none was conducted at all at any ward. And it was based on that our clients approached the court to say, look, there was nothing, but they just saw a purported list submitted, and that the list should be set aside. And the court granted it, and even warned that the days of impunity, political impunity, are gone forever, and it will not be tolerated, and advised the parties to go and conduct congresses prior to the nomination of their candidates.
We are in court to strengthen democracy at the state level, to entrench rule of law and internal democracy. And we thank God that the party has seen the fact of the case from our own ends and has given a judgment that is favorable to every party. And we appreciate all the members of the party at the state level and the leaders who supported us in the course of this struggle. Our case is not against an individual or anybody, but is to fight for the right thing to be done within the party and avoid some of the avoidable mistakes that cost us so much in other states such as Zamfara, Rivers State, and of late even Nasarawa State. And we also thank the leadership of the party, because the last time I met with the National Working Committee, presided over by the national chairman, we discussed as to what can be done to bring justice to the parties in the state. And we said, no, the only thing to be done is to do direct primaries. And if you must continue with indirect primaries, then you must do delegate election, Congress, that will throw up legitimate, Congress. And he assured me that he was going to ensure that we do direct primaries.
Now to Kano State, the All Progressives Congress has asked the Governorship Election Petition Tribunal to declare the March 18 election in the state inconclusive. The party is challenging the declaration of Abba Kabir Yusuf of the New Nigeria People's Party as the winner of the election by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. In a 5-volume petition filed dated April 9, the APC alleged that Kabir Yusuf of the NNPP was not qualified to contest the election on the grounds that his name was not on the list of members of the NNPP sent to INEC. The party prayed to the tribunal in the alternative to declare the election as inconclusive, alleging that the margin of lead was not more than the votes cancelled. Staying in Kano State, ahead of the supplementary election slated for the 15th of April, the Independent National Electoral Commission and the police in the state have assured of a peaceful and rancor-free poll. This was made known in a stakeholders meeting with the police, civil society, political parties, representatives, and the media at the headquarters of INEC. Ambassador Abdul Zango, the Kano State Resident Electoral Commissioner, while assuring of the free and fair polls, said incidents of violence is the reason supplementary elections will be conducted in the state. He pleaded with political parties and their supporters to eschew all forms of violence and seek redress through legal means if unsatisfied with the result. On his part, Ma'azza Mohammed, the Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of operations, warned all political party supporters and those planning to cause violence to desist or face the full wrath of the law.
Election is an abnormality, is an aberration in democracy, and we are determined to change that narrative for Kano. And inshallah, on Saturday, we will do this election, we will declare the poll results, no more, no less. And anybody who feels not satisfied, he has the right to seek redress through legal means. Please continue to believe and have confidence in the process. We will do justice. We will be there. We will provide the enabling environment for everybody to feel and accommodated. We will conduct free, fair, and credible elections. We want you to believe that we will do that.
Now, the ruling People's Democratic Party and the All Progressives Congress APC are now mounting pressure on the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC ahead of Saturday's governorship rerun in Adamawa State. The supporters of the two political parties thronged into the INEC office in Yola, demanding credible and acceptable polls at the end of the exercise. Speaking on behalf of the APC demonstrators, Smart Edward, the Supreme Leader of Natives Worldwide, called on Adamawa Electoral Resident Commissioner to be non-partisan, but should summon courage that so that the people's vote would count. Other speakers expressed confidence that their preferable candidate emerged or will emerge victorious at the end of the exercise.
We have come to INEC office here to affirm that Binani has a date with history. Binani has been chosen by Almighty God to lead, and no form of blackmail should be used against a woman going into politics. We are all sons and daughters born of women.
Of people be truncated to see voters' opinions become relegated to just the dustbin. Impossible. I thank you all for taking this bold step. This is what democracy needs. People stand up, enforce their rights, insist on it, and people, institutions like INEC, make sure that things are done in a proper way, dispassionate way, and in this instance, the PDP is the winner in Adamawa.
The elections haven't been declared inconclusive, and a supplementary election has been fixed. It is obvious that different interest groups, particularly political parties, will continue to make demands. And these demands have been expressed in form of peaceful procession and the rest of them.
And now, away from all of that talk in gender equality, Honorable Miriam Onoha has urged the federal government to declare a state of emergency on the dwindling number of women in the parliament for equity and inclusivity. The lawmaker who is representing Okigwe North in Imo State made a call in Abuja on Wednesday during her declaration of interest for the office of the Speaker of the 10th Assembly. She says her emergence as Speaker will usher in a pragmatic solution to the current challenges of national cohesion. She says that Nigeria's protocol list can no longer be taken without the female gender on it, while appealing to her fellow male contestants to step down for her.
Something drastic, something deliberate has to be done to ensure that the number of women participation in politics is increased. We are all aware that the last election witnessed low turnout. Low turnout owing to the fact, partly, that women who largely control the votes might have been cut out owing to the fact that there is poor inducement of their fellow women to vote. And even with the small numbers that came out, over 60% of the voters have been proved to be women. How best and how best can this teeming Nigerian female voters be rewarded, if not by electing a woman on the presiding seat of the National Assembly and the House of Representatives?
Honorable Onoha went on to reel out a 7-point agenda for the 10th National Assembly under her watch, which includes the digitization of activities of Roads and Business Committee, improvement of the legislative policy action to promote the interest of women and vulnerable groups, among others. She showed that her emergence will create opportunities for National Assembly stakeholders' engagement to provide access for public participation in lawmaking.
It is not possible for a man to speak for us on issues that bother women when we have credible and qualified women like myself. I am ranking. I am also of the All Progressives Congress. I qualify and I suitably am able to oust all the men on this contest. And like you are aware, in almost all, about 90 positions of this country, the men have dominated it. Ceding this one position to me will be a way of proving that we are running an inclusive government.
Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa says local government administration remains an integral part of the nation's democracy in view of its pivotal role in grassroots development. Okowa stated this while inaugurating some projects, including the legislative complex at Oshimili South local government capital, or council rather, in Asaba, the state capital. Our correspondent Akpomajero Friday reports that Okowa, who pointed out that Asaba as a capital territory was becoming the fastest growing in terms of development across the nation, said efforts at peace building have developed in its and have helped in its development.
Also glad that you have environmental marshals. You quoted the number of 240 of them that you have engaged to help ensure cleanliness. We also have the Capital Territory Development Agency that's in charge with the beautification and development of the Asaba Capital Territory, working also along with the Environmental Board. And there's a Waste Management Board. And I believe that with this development stride, because cleanliness is part of development. It's not just about government being able to bring development by providing the enabling environment. We have also tended to, through our efforts at peace building, to attract a lot of people from other states to Asaba and the Capital Territory.
The leader of the house, no councillor had an office. Most of them stay under the tree to perform their official duties. It's against this backdrop that we decided to create a conducive working environment to enable our legislators make good laws for the good people of Oshimili South by providing a befitting space and friendly working environment for them. The legislature is an arm of local government and deserves a befitting complex, especially as Oshimili South is the mother of all countries.
Well, let's talk business now. The federal government has brought a 4-count charge against Seplat Energy at the Federal High Court in Abuja over an alleged breach of extant provisions of the Immigration Act 2015. Roger Brown, the company's chief executive officer, Basil Omiyi, board chairman, Edis Onwuchekwa, company secretary and legal counsel, as well as independent directors Fabian Ajogo, Rabiu Bello, Emma Fitzgerald, Charles Okahalam, Bashirat Odunewo were also charged. In the suit, the defendants were accused of conspiring among themselves to allow Roger Brown accept employment as chief executive officer at Seplat Energy plc without the consent of the Controller General of Immigration, contrary to Section 36, subsection 1A and 71 of the Immigration Act of 2015, and punishable under section 36, subsection 2, and section 71A of the Immigration Act of the same year. They were also said to have connived among themselves to allow Brown take over business as CEO of Seplat without the consent of the Minister of Interior, contrary to section 36, subsection 1B, and punishable under section 36, subsection 2, and section 105 of the Immigration Act. In entertainment news now, the Lagos State government has issued a strongly worded rebuke against Gangs of Lagos, a new Nollywood film that started streaming on Prime Video on April the 7th. The Jade Oshiberu film follows the lives of three friends who grew up in a crime-ridden Isale-Eko in Lagos and are drawn into gang life. In a statement released on Wednesday, the State Commissioner for Tourism, Art and Culture, Uzamat Akimbile Yusuf, condemned the film for misrepresenting the culture of the state. She further rebuked the producers for portraying the revered Eyo masquerade as a gun-wielding villain. Finally, in sports news, now Chelsea's interim manager Frank Lampard has claimed that his players lack self-belief following their 2-0 defeat at Real Madrid on Wednesday night. The La Liga champions beat the Blues 2-0 at home to claim a good advantage ahead of the second leg of their Champions League quarter-final. Karim Benzema and Marco Asensio scored for Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu. Chelsea was reduced to 10 men after Ben Chilwell saw red for fouling Rodrigo. In an interview after the match, Lampard said he is proud of his players, but there's still a bit of lack of belief. The players don't know how good they are, he said. Now Chelsea must now score at least twice in next Tuesday's quarter-final return leg at Stamford Bridge. In sports news, wraps it for us and the news brief. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us from Limex on Limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. I am Justin Akadonye, and thanks for watching.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Imagine that you're going to live for 100 years. The way you treat your body right now, would your liver and your kidney take you that far? Now, you must understand that the body is a biologic organism or a biologic machine, just like your generator and your machines, your car. How do you treat them? You can replace the parts, you take them for regular servicing. There is an input talking about your fuel, and there is an output talking about your combustion, your gas. That same way, the body thrives on an input, maintenance, and output system. The body, like every other biological machine, takes in organic matter because that's its source, comes from the earth, and then uses it for the production of many chemicals, hormones, and synthesis of cells and tissues, and then excretes it organic manure, and it gets back to the soil. How does this happen to maintain your health? You must take in organic-based meal. And that's why the closer your meal is to the earth, the better for you. The closer it is from the earth to you, the better such meals. When many foods stay a long distance before getting to you, it's not as good as when it just gets from ground to you. All right? Very importantly, that you reduce the intake of chemicals. You can't keep taking chemicals. The body doesn't understand it. It's not able to process it. And then for every time the body tries to process these chemicals, it experiences what we call breakdown, especially your excretory organs like your kidney and liver. This has been the cause of many liver damage and kidney damages. So when you take a lot of chemicals, one of them is pure chemicals, such as alcohol, such as spirits, such as tobacco, many of them cigarettes. When you're taking these things, the body tries its best to absorb the exogenous substance and excrete them. And of course, you have free radicals running through your system. If you're not able to break them down, your tissues die slowly. All right. Other things are things like even polyprocessed meals. For example, roasted meat, what you call suya. That suya is not very fantastic for your health, especially for your liver. It's not so good. When you're taking a lot of carbonated drinks, you further cause damage to your system. And more importantly is that you may not notice them between the ages of 0 to 35, 40. The moment you begin to get off that peak period where your energy, where your body is supposed to start going uphill, you will notice that you cannot go longer than normal, and then you begin to break down. All right. Very important that you take fruits, lots of fruits. And it's important that you're particular about your source of fruits. Many of the fruits nowadays are being synthesized. Many of them are done in the laboratories. Many of them have been changed, mutated. And so when I was little, I know that pineapples that I take used to be very bitter when it's green. Nowadays, the greener it is, the sweeter it is. So these cannot be very useful for the body. So the body cannot use it. The long and short of what I'm trying to say is that your body must use what it needs, not what it doesn't need. When you're taking drugs, if you can prevent the recurrent intakes of drugs, you need to do. Many of you who think that antibiotics is vitamin C, it's not. They're not the same. Take drugs when necessary. And in fact, it must be prescribed. You just go off the counter and take what you like and how you like it, what quantity. You need to take prescribed drugs. Many of us who do herbal drinks and concussions and all kinds of things, you further disintegrate your body system. You make your body confused because the dosages are not clear. One very important source that's given to us by nature is water. A high level of alkalized water is very good for you. A high level of sunlight. Don't be afraid of sunlight. For many of you who go from air conditioners to air conditioners to air conditioners, you need the sunlight to help you provide vitamin D, which carries calcium, makes it absorbed in the bones, and prevents things like osteoporosis, low back pain, arthritis. These are natural ways of preventing illnesses. So you're managing your health that way. You're taking a lot of water, you prevent urinary tract infection, you prevent dehydration, you prevent constipation, you take a lot of fibers from fruits, you prevent constipation, you improve your microorganisms in your system, then you will not fall sick easily. And of course, you do a lot of fruits, including vegetables that contains a lot of carotenes, vitamins, B, B12, B6, A vitamins. Your eyes are very, very protected. And of course, you want to care for your prostate. Lastly, there are age-related diseases. For every age, you want to find out what are the diseases in that age and you begin to treat them. For an example, a man who is clocking 45 years and above needs to check his prostate. Don't be surprised. Oh, he died of prostate cancer, and you're like, no, check your prostates once you hit 45. For a lady, you cross reproductive age, you want to start checking for cervical cancer. Pap smear recurrently, yearly, will not do you bad. Of course, your BP should not be, you should know your BP of your last 1 week. Your blood sugar, you should know the last 1 month blood sugar. Don't be in your new, especially when you clock the age of 40. By then, your health is beginning to take an uphill task. Manage your health so that you can live as much as 100.